are here today for the Arkansas Soybean Promotions Board Field to Film podcast at the Arkansas FFA Foundation's Camp Couchdale with Taylor Wiseman. We have so much to talk about today. We want to talk about you, your journey, and then, Arkansas FFA. If someone else was looking to do something similar, whether that's fundraising or policy or anything kind of in this realm, what would you say they need to hone?
I think regardless of the career that you go into, just like FFA members have their ag teacher investing in them, to find those people who can invest in you. So having good mentors throughout your whole career. And they may shift as your career shifts, but having people who've been there and done that, that you can trust and call and talk through things is so beneficial. And then I would say for the skill piece is you can never go wrong improving yourself. So if that's your leadership capabilities, if that's reading books, listening to podcasts, if that's finding other people and just visiting with them and asking them how they got where they are, you really can't go wrong with improving your leadership skills and then having mentors, and that hopefully will serve you well whatever path you go into. So I grew up in Arkansas. Arkansas has always been home, and I graduated from the Vilonia High School. I was in Vilonia FFA chapter, and ag was kind of my life. I grew up in it. I loved it. I loved the leadership side of it as well. And so after high school, went to college at Southern Arkansas University and studied agriculture business. Throughout that time, also got to serve as a state and national FFA president. And then after I finished that, I went to the University of Arkansas and received a degree in agriculture economics. But the whole time I was really focused on how I could advocate for Arkansas, advocate for rural America, and agriculture specifically. And so there was an opportunity I could go to DC and work on policy there. So spent about 5 years, having a career in ag policy and advocating for the lifestyle and the folks that I grew up with and grew up around. Loved living in DC, but I am from Arkansas, and Arkansas is home. And so recently moved back here to the state and thought that it would be perfect fit to step into a role with the Arkansas FFA Foundation. While the fundraising side is a little bit new, it really is advocating for Arkansas, rural Arkansas, and agriculture, and those are things that I've continually done over every role that I've had.
And so let's kind of backtrack a little bit and let's talk more about your education. When you were going to college, did you know exactly what you were looking for, or how did you really determine which degree you wanted?
Sure. Well, if you look in agriculture, there are so many different degrees. I think if you could count them, there's over 200 unique careers in agriculture. And so when I was growing up in high school, I first wanted to be a vet. And through my time in FFA, I was involved in different animal science classes. I actually job shadowed a vet in high school. And I'm glad I did, because after that day I realized I did not want to be a vet. And so I'm just thankful that there was an opportunity to realize that my senior year of high school. And so I started figuring out, okay, what is it I want to do? And I was involved in a lot of the leadership stuff, public speaking and advocating for agriculture. And so I started looking at those careers, and a lot of people that went into that had an agriculture business degree, or maybe agriculture communications. And so I looked at those programs in the state. Southern Arkansas University felt like the perfect fit. And so it really is a wide field in agriculture.
And so just talk a little bit more about that policy for our listeners who don't necessarily know what that is. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Sure. So in agriculture, really all across this country, the laws that are made at even a local, state, and national level impact what farmers and ranchers do. And I really saw this when I was in 11th grade. At that time, there was a rule that came out from the federal government that would limit youth working in agriculture. It said it was dangerous, it was hot, sometimes it was too cold, they were around dangerous equipment like tractors and climbing on ladders, and my parents would say that was just building character, but some folks thought that was dangerous and we needed to basically restrict youth working in agriculture. And so I found out about that. I started doing my speeches around that to raise awareness, and then that's when I really saw there's a lot of things that happen in a place like Washington, D.C. that impact the smallest towns in Arkansas. And so if somebody up there could say, hey, it's not dangerous to work on a farm, like we do protect the youth that work there, but making sure that they can't ever climb up in a tractor, like that's not sustainable for rural America. And so there's all types of policy, if it's the environment, if it's how we grow our food, if it's food safety, if it's things like the Farm Bill, all of that impacts agriculture. And so it was such an honor to lived that, go up there and then advocate for it with some incredible advocates in Congress from Arkansas working for them, and then coming back and still being connected in that way of how do we advocate for agriculture, if it's policy, if it's fundraising, if it's with our youth.
The transition from working in policy to working as the executive director at FFA, I'm assuming that's a bit of a change. Can you kind of talk to us about that?
Yes, a lot of it is working with people. I realized very early on, like it's really hard to get stuff done by yourself, but if you have a team around you, you build coalitions, you figure out who is on your side and who has the same goals and align with them, you can get some stuff done. And so I'm definitely learning all of that, but it does make me think back to like there's a very technical side to both of those jobs, and if you find the right mentors that will pour into you, it definitely helps with that learning curve.
So can you talk to us about the day-to-day of your job? What does that look like?
Sure. So I work for the Arkansas FFA Foundation, and we exist to bring in the financial resources to help FFA members. So we have over 18,000 FFA members currently in agricultural education classes all over the state of Arkansas. And so as I sit down every day or plan out the week or plan out the month, it's what do we need to do to bring in those resources? And so I kind of see there's three buckets. There's one of just making sure that folks know we exist, right? And telling that story of FFA, how it can be life-changing for students, and connecting that with, if it's individuals or corporations or organizations. Then there's kind of the management side of it, of bringing in those dollars, making sure that they're going to the intended purpose, measuring that impact. And then also for me, a lot of my job is just making sure that I am getting all the skills that I need to just be the best that I can be.
So can you tell us a little bit about the mission of FFA?
Sure. So FFA itself was started almost 100 years ago, and a lot of folks refer to it, and it was founded as the Future Farmers of America. And so that's still what FFA stands for today, although a lot of us say just FFA in general because it is more than just farming. It's the environment, it's the food science, it's all of those careers that support agriculture. So FFA here, it really focuses on the premier leadership, the personal growth, and the career success of FFA members. And that's done through being in the organization, but then also being enrolled in an agricultural education class, primarily in high school. And so every day a student walks into their agriculture education class. They have an agriculture science teacher that's teaching them curriculum and is also their FFA advisor, where they can take that curriculum and then go compete in contests or go to speaking contests or go to leadership camps to really round out that premier leadership, that personal growth, and that career success that FFA is all about.
You do a lot of fundraising. Can you walk us through your approach to recruitment?
When we think about folks that want to invest in FFA, there's kind of two different, I would say, categories. We have individual donors who are folks that typically have seen FFA either personally or in their children or grandkids or in their community, and they say, I want to invest in these students. My heart is in FFA. I want to make sure this program continues. And then we also have a group of more of our organizations, so maybe different agriculture groups, maybe different companies, who a lot of their workforce and their staff were FFA members, and so they've seen the value of it. But a lot of them tell us, like, we need a workforce, right? We need, 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to need people that can come and maybe work on our tractors, or they can build the technology to send the drones out, to check on different agriculture products, or we need the logistics help. And so we want to invest in these students. And so I think it's really cool. I would say I try to start at just figuring out their why. Like, why do they like FFA? Why do they want to invest? Or what is it what are their needs and how can FFA help them in those? Because FFA instills from a very early age, like, we are a service organization. Like, we are here to serve and not be served. Service leadership. You know, we just continue to instill that in our students. And so I've tried to continue to have that mindset in the foundation of, like, yes, we are asking for donations, we're asking for an investment in our students, but also we have something to give. And if we know what your needs are, like, let's figure out how we can serve you and meet those needs. If it's visiting with students, if it's a workforce, if it's making sure that there are folks in rural, you know, towns across the state 20, 30 years from now. And, you know, we've got the students that are gonna be there, and if you can invest in them, that's kind of helping you as well.
So overall, you know, if someone were to invest, what would you say is like the core purpose and the core benefit of them investing?
Sure. I think it's really hard, and even just if you think personally, like, it's really hard to invest in something that you don't know about and you don't see. And so for us, it's making sure that we're telling the great story of everything that's going on. And then when folks see that, then they say, oh, okay, I want to invest in that. For donors, when they see, oh, we can remove that financial burden so more students can participate, more students can wear the blue jacket, more students can compete in the electricity contest or the vet science contest if we invest, and then they get to go see that firsthand. I think that is really energizing for them. Even just bringing folks here to camp. So we're sitting right now at Camp Couchdale. One of my goals is to bring those that have invested and our partners here to camp so they can actually see what it is that students are learning and the type of people that they're becoming.
So what type of events, you mentioned a few events, can you walk us through those?
Sure. Here at camp we have a lot of different facilities, leadership camps and conferences, from our green hands, which we call, you know, our 9th grade kind of first year FFA members, all the way up to, you know, chapter presidents conference, which is our leaders in that chapter, and then all throughout kind of that range, students can come here. There's different contests that are held here, so we do compete a lot in FFA. I think it really sharpens those skills.
Of course.
And, you know, that's what students really love doing is competing.
And it's
taking
so
what they
beneficial
learn.
too.
We also have built the agriculture mechanics lab. Greenway has been a great partner in that, and so that's a facility where we can teach our teachers, we can teach students that want to become teachers, we can really show them and make sure we have the latest, greatest technology so that they are career ready when they leave high school. If that's college, if that's trade school, if that's the workforce, like, they have tools day one that they can apply. You know, I never thought I'd be a quote-unquote fundraiser. I don't think I could fundraise for much else except FFA, but I've lived it, I've breathed it. I've personally had the experience of the life-changing experience that having an agriculture education teacher, or even just a group of them who have poured into me, taking these skills into college, into my career, has just been so beneficial. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it in so many of my friends. Like, I see it every day in the students that we interact with. And one recent example is, you know, over this past year, we started a career development event for auctioneering. There's a need to have more auctioneers, and so we've had some partners come alongside us and really support that contest. And so at the state contest, you know, these students were demonstrating their skills. They were auctioning off pieces of, you know, just equipment or things that they had made or their fellow members had made in their shops. And so it was like FFA members auctioning off FFA member projects to benefit, you know, FFA. And these students got so much attention from the outside. Like, people have been calling, like, can I have an FFA member come guest auction here?
Really?
Go there. And that's such a tangible skill that they can take, that they've learned, that they've been able to compete and really perfect. And they are so young in their career, and they can just take that and use it the rest of their life. So there's nothing about, I just can't beat the feeling of seeing an FFA member, seeing an ag ed student come in, learn something, and then that stays with them whenever they take off that blue jacket. And that is a really fun story that I get to go tell.
Looking at, you know, just the agriculture landscape, would you say it's changed recently? And if it's so, like, how is your approach to that?
I feel like it's always changing, one of the quotes that I've heard growing up is like, if you're green, you're growing, if you're ripe, you're rot. And so we always want to be growing and changing. And I think thinking about that is the how may change, but our why is pretty much the same.
Right.
Like, in agriculture, like people in that industry are there to feed the world. Like that looked different 100 years ago, but today we're still feeding the world. And so that looks different with technology. And I think why it's so important when you think about FFA specifically is we also were formed 100 years ago to serve, agriculture, to grow leaders in agriculture. Again, we've gone through a ton of changes in almost 100 years. Things look very different today, but we're still growing leaders in agriculture, which is why for us it's so important that FFA is very closely aligned with the agriculture industry. We know those partners out there, what they're looking for, the technology that they have, and trying to get that into our classrooms and into our conferences and into the contests that we have, so that students are learning the greatest things so that they can go into those careers. They're not using outdated equipment or outdated methods and technology. So that's the exciting part of me, is to stay up with those trends in agriculture and then try to connect it back so our students are right on the cutting edge of agriculture as well.
What do you hope to accomplish in your goal? And looking big picture, what legacy do you hope to create for FFA?
I would say long term, what does it look like that every student who walks into an agricultural education classroom that wants to join FFA, that they're able to do that? That money is not a barrier to them joining, to them participating, to them coming to camp, to them competing in contests, to them learning the skills they need to learn. And so that is a big task, and I think it's going to be an ongoing process. And then I think also is making sure that we're telling our story, that is just a part of what we do. Whenever I leave, I can look back and say, okay, I was able to serve well, and like my dad always said, leave it better than you found it. And so if it's better, at the end of my time here than at the beginning, then I'll call it a success.
Definitely a success. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Field to Film podcast.
Thank you.